Lake Gibson Middle. The Shark Zone Podcast. Welcome to the Shark Zone Podcast Experience. Welcome to the Shark Zone Podcast Experience with Josh.
We're supposed to open the conversation.
Zach.
They break so easily.
And Abel.
Someone has a panic attack.
Sports. Lunch. Weather.
Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Zach, if you already don't know, and we're going to be doing an interview with Mr. Patillo on this show and the next show. So this is kind of like part one at the moment, and there's going to be another part, and it's going to be a recontinue of the questions we're going to do. So I do have some announcements here. It's on my card. October 24th, we have our report cards coming out. So it's going to rather be in your parents' email, but if your parents want, the paper version, this is paper if you haven't seen what paper is, you have to go up to the school and ask for the paper version. Picture retakes on October 26th, which is good. Some people were here for pictures and they still have their 7th grade or their, the elementary pictures in there. I don't know why they would have that. Now we're going to go on to the segment with Mr. Patillo. All right, so what's going on, guys? My name is Zach and this is Josh. And today we have Mr. Patillo, our principal, on here for questions. And we're going to start asking him a couple questions. You can go ahead, Josh.
So the first question is, why can we not fully dress down this year?
Well, I think Mr. Glover had, by the way, never been on a podcast before, guys. So thank you for inviting me to come here. I'm very, very excited. I think maybe if this goes well, maybe we can do more of them throughout the year, because it's really cool to communicate and ask these questions, whether it's, questions like the one that Josh asked, which I will answer, or maybe it's just other questions about academics or other school related stuff. So I do thank you for having me, and thank you, Josh, for asking the question. So, when it comes to those kinds of things, it's the one thing that I try to explain to everybody is that, unfortunately, we try to make rules for the masses, right? For the many. Yeah. Unfortunately, last year, and I think you guys noticed that anybody that was paying attention noticed that a lot of people just abuse that privilege. And so it becomes such a distraction and a nightmare. But the one thing that I will say is that nothing is ever, well, I'm not going to say nothing. There are certain things that are out of the question. We can't, we can't do at school. But when it comes to those rules that we change and we take back, a lot of it can come back. And a lot of it is something that we could consider trying one more time and trying to maybe put a lot more explanation around what you can and can't do, and trying it out. Because sometimes when you take something away, people are like, oh man, that was really good. And then maybe if you bring it back, they'll try to appreciate it and try not to, right? The bad thing about all of those things is that it always ends up punishing everybody. And it always ends up punishing even the kids the students that are doing the right things. And it's unfortunate, but when you're at a school or a church or a club or an organization, you can't make rules for just a few. You have to make blanket rules, unfortunately. And sometimes people get unfairly swept up in the consequences. But I will say it is something that I'm willing to think about.
See, because it seems like it's a lot of things. A few people screw up and everyone basically screws up.
Right.
Now, here's a second question. Why was lunch period moved to 4th period?
So it really had a lot to do with the fact that we wanted to have something a little bit more towards the middle of the day, later towards the middle of the day. And it also had to do with homeroom, right? We had to create a system where last year, if you remember, was the first year that everybody had their computers given to them for the first time. Yeah. And it was a little messy because there are students who have to turn in a form because their parents don't want them to bring those computers at home. And so if you recall last year, the 7th period teachers had to bring the computers down to the cafeteria, and that was just really hard on them. So we thought this summer, how can we create something where the students can pick up their laptops and drop off their laptops at the same location. And so we thought 7th period homeroom, since they're going to be there at the end of the day, they leave their laptops there at the end of the day, and they pick them up at the end of at the beginning of the next day. So there's no movement in that. So what that does is you have to build 10 minutes at the beginning of the schedule, and then space out all of the classes and everything. And
10 more minutes than it was last year.
Right, exactly. But it's a domino effect. You change one thing, and then it just kind of changes a lot of the other things. And I will say though, and I'm going to knock on wood because I don't want to jinx it or Friday the 13th it or anything like that, but having lunches a little bit later in the day, because like our energy, and when I say our energy, I mean students' energy, seems to come alive after lunch. And so when you have lunch earlier in the day, you have more of the day with that energy. And so with having lunch in 4th period, it really ends almost at 2:00 in the afternoon. It ends like at 1:48 or 45. Yeah. So really like 2:00. So you only have from 2 to 4:15. 3 periods instead of 4 periods. It does make a difference after lunch. We're not as energetic for as long, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because like for me, I have PE right after the lunch period, so that was sort of convenient for me.
Right.
Because you're not tired. Because I remember like 7th period, because I had C lunch last year, so we'd eat at like 11:30. Come 7th period, I'm hungry.
Yeah. And if you recall, last year we Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think we sold at some of the like chips and stuff like that after school, and I don't, maybe we'll do that again later in the year. But it was funny to see a lot of the kids just like almost attacking the concession stand because they're so hungry. Because when you eat so early, my wife's an elementary school teacher, and she tells me she eats lunch at like 10:30. And so by
but
3
then again, they get out at like 3:00.
Right. Yeah, they do. But she says still like by 3, and then between like dismissal and after school, this and that is still like 4:00 for her. But by the time she gets to go home, and she says she's like ready to eat the paint off the walls or something like that. She's really hungry.
Anyway, so I do have a question. Why were our schedules mixed around the next quarter, like quarter 2?
Oh, that is a really good question. And I'm so glad you asked because, it's affecting a lot of people. So the way, and this is every school in Polk County, every school really in the state of Florida or in the nation, I would venture to say, it all depends on the number of students that you have, because the number of students that you have dictates the number of teachers that you get to teach those kids. So if you have, you guys know the X number of they have a calculation, X number of students means that you have to have X number of teachers in order to make the schedule work and make sure that everybody has a teacher. So Lake Gibson Middle was projected last spring to have a total enrollment of about 1,230 students, right? I mean, I don't know.
That's what it was last year.
Right.
The yearbook, it says like 1,220.
Exactly. I think what they do is they kind of look at a 3-year average, and they probably look at some other like community things, buildings, new housing, and they look at some of the stuff to calculate that. Mm-hmm. And we are about 100 kids short of what that number. So we're like at 1,130 instead of 1,230. And so when that happens, at the beginning of the year, after the 8th day of the year, there's a count the first week of school. There's a first day count, a third day count, and then the final one is the 8th day count. And
is that why attendance is so important that first week of school?
Yes, sir. You got it. You absolutely got it. It's so important. And that's why we sometimes get on the radio, or not on the radio, on the intercom and go, make sure you're counting, even if they've already been in your class, make sure you count them or not present, but you count them in the little form because they've already been there. So it came out that we are 100 students short in their calculations. And I really don't know how they do the math. That translated to losing 4 teachers. And so luckily we only lost 2, and which I'm going to take an opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Shelton and Ms. McLeod. They will be leaving us to go to other schools. They volunteered to do that, but I just want to thank them for the job that they did while they were here. The other 2 teachers that we lost, those were positions that we had empty. And so we were able to move around some kids, unfortunately, and this is just the reality. It makes classes bigger because now we have to take those classes and spread them out into classes that they belong, grade level, subject level. But what that means is that is making class numbers a little bit bigger. So I need y'all to behave a little bit better because our classes are a little bit bigger. But when you do that, like I said earlier, it's a domino effect. Once you move things up, the master schedule, guys, is like a monster puzzle. Like you move one piece and then because and a lot of you guys can relate. Some of you have classes that are only offered like one period. Anybody taking geometry, for example, or anybody taking world history is very limited. High school credit classes, advanced classes, typically some band and performance arts are locked in, so you can't move too many kids around that have been in band for 3 years and plan to go and play at the high school. Like, how do you move them out of band?
So, like, is this class one of those classes? Like, second period is the high school class.
Yeah, so those classes have to be protected, right? Because you guys get a high school credit and you take that to your, you already have a GPA built up when you go to high school.
Still, like, algebra as well, because I'm taking algebra. Zach's
Yes.
taking algebra. I don't. AJ, are you taking algebra? No.
No.
Geometry.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing. Geometry in middle school,
because
it's
they
very amazing. Congratulations to you.
last year, I started the first 2 weeks in algebra because I had 6th grade basic math, and they put me in algebra. And I think that was because my score was like a 4, so they thought I could do it, and I couldn't, so I had to back down. I was still in advanced by 1 year instead of 2. So I had
That
to
was
go-
last year?
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's still pretty amazing though. Like anybody even taking geometry or algebra in middle school, 7th or 8th grade, what that means is that you, when you get
the standards.
oh yeah, and when you get to high school, those are high school requirements. You've already met them, and when you go to high school, now you have more choices to take either other electives or, and this may sound a little strange to you, but you'll find out more about it. Dual enrollment classes, college classes, because when you graduate high school, if you play your cards right and your counselor and you have the room in your schedule, you could actually graduate high school. I have met people that graduate high school with a AA degree already. So they get their high school diploma and they get their 2-year, instead of a 4-year, they get 2 years of college already done, which is called an AA degree. Whoa. So now you're going to college and you only have to spend money for 2 years instead of 4, and it's free. Polk County Schools pays for it. So, and you have Polk State on board with some of that, depending on high school you go to. You have Southeastern University, I'm missing Polk State, Southeastern.
Like scholarship programs, right?
No, those are classes with professors that come to the high school to teach, or some of your high school teachers are already credentialed to teach that. And you're taking some kids drive to the college campus, but when you do some of the stuff in middle school, it opens up the possibility that you could graduate high school with a lot of college, or maybe the first 2 years of college already done.
So does that mean, because my grandfather in 12th grade, the only credit that he needed was English. He had his math and everything else done. So that is what it opens up for. If you have all your math credits, the only thing I don't have advanced is history. That's like my only non-advanced class. Now, if I have advanced English, does that mean that I don't have to take English in 12th grade because it is advanced? So am I technically taking 9th grade English?
No, so the state of Florida in the high school requirements in the state of Florida is that you have English 1, 2, 3, and 4. So English 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So that's a requirement.
I'm taking language arts free. So.
What that means is that you could possibly be taking college freshman English in high school, and that will satisfy one of like your senior English or your junior English. So yeah, you're still getting the English credit to satisfy the state of Florida graduation requirement, but you're also gaining college credits. So
I might not even have to go to college.
The most you could probably walk out of high school is with 2 years of college. And some students, that's all they want. And then they go get like some sort of job or technical degree. But if you're a 4-year college person or beyond, it just means that you just save 2 years worth of college, which is thousands of dollars for free.
So basically I cut my debt in half.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, that's
something I have to
super
think about.
beneficial.
Yes. You'll need to start thinking about it, 8th graders. Absolutely.
Blake Gibson Middle. The Shark Zone Podcast. Welcome to the Shark Zone Podcast Experience. Welcome to the Shark Zone Podcast Experience. With Josh.
We're supposed to open the conversation!
Zach.
They break so easily.
And Aiden.
Someone has a panic attack.
Sports. Lunch. Weather.